Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, where the whole household of God is welcomed and wanted. Happy Wednesday to everyone. It's been a rainy day. Does anybody feel fresh and new? I'm in gratitude that our little flowers and grass are getting some attention without raising our water bill. Yes, in everything give thanks. Good to see you with us tonight. Welcome once again to our inclusive community. We are an LGBTQ plus affirming interfaith community that knows God is bigger than religion, bigger than sexuality, bigger than race, bigger than country of origin, bigger than gender, bigger than what we have imagined. And so we certainly are glad you're here with us tonight. You can probably see once again that our virtual background tonight is in honor of Pride Month. And that is how we just say, I got to see it just then, that's how we just say to all of our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters that we love you, we support you. We're in this with you. We are allies, and we are a safe place where you are not tolerated. You are celebrated. We're glad that you're with us tonight. We are once again tonight in Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. It is going to be an exciting night. We're going to talk about triggers in just a moment. If you'd like to take a moment and either look through the notes in your event description, or you can look also into your email. We sent you an email today that's going to talk about what some triggers might be in our lives. Maybe these aren't the ones. And then a few questions that will kind of help us with our discussion tonight. And so before we get into that, we're going to go right into our Fully Awake 365 devotion. We are so happy to have this useful tool. Hopefully it will serve us for many years to come. My sister and I co-wrote this book together. Every day begins with a beautiful affirmation, an idea to consider and chew on, and then an ending prayer of gratitude and really a prayer of declaration. And so we're going to jump into our devotion for tonight. This is June 21st. We are in the month or the theme of respecting the journey of others. That is something that is not as common in Western religions as it is in Eastern. Western religions attempt to missionize, evangelize, proselytize, project their spiritual journey onto the world instead of allowing everyone to connect to God in their own way. And so that's kind of part of what this month is, what the month of June is about. Can you believe we're in June 21st? I can't believe we're already there. We're going to jump into our affirmation. We're going to talk tonight or today, our affirmation about learning to share. Learning to share. I believe, by the way, just for trivia, I think today is the longest day of the year. Not as in hours, but it's the longest period where we have light. And so probably you look out about 9:20, 9:30 tonight, and it might not be completely dark. And so this is where we get just a little bit of history for everybody. This is where we get some of the ancient ideas of Easter. Easter was kind of formed around the sun, the star gods. When the sun overtakes, so at the spring equinox, the sun becomes greater than the darkness. And so there's 13 hours of light and 11 hours of darkness, whatever that is. And so that becomes equated over the years with Easter. And so it's not that we don't celebrate Easter, we certainly do, but things like Christmas being on exactly December 25th or Easter being an exact Sunday, we know that those are wonderful stories that we connect to in spirit, and that we know that the resurrection is within us, not about necessarily a physical thing or even a second resurrection of our bodies coming up out of the grave. We live in the kingdom of God right now. It is within us, and it is at hand, and it is right now. All right, we're going to talk tonight about learning to share. This is our affirmation for today's devotion. Today, I will share of my time, of my talent, and of my treasure. I will allow money to flow to me and through me. And so today's devotion is something that I wrote. It's a bit heavy on anecdotes. It's really several stories about my life and learning to be a giver at a very young age. I just tell a quick story about my 16th birthday, or looking forward to my 16th birthday, because I wanted to buy a car. I had worked several different jobs, all kinds of odds and end jobs, saved about $3,000 or so, and had enough money, I thought, to get a pretty decent used car, and really felt in my heart to give that money away, and I did. And one of the members of our church found out about the story, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I own a small car lot. When you turn 16, why don't you come and pick out a car that you want? It's my gift to you on your 16th birthday." I was blown away. And so I gave because I felt the inspiration to give of something. Someone else heard of it and they felt to give. And then watch this. That gentleman who gave me that car was promoted the same year to being the financial manager of a large dealership. And so since that time in my life, I think I have given away, and Brandy and I have given away, I have to count it up, it's either 7 or 8 cars that we've just given to people. I've never been without a car. I've never been without transportation. I never will be, because I have sown some good seeds of giving. And so what's the principle here? The principle is that blessings don't just flow to us and become stagnant or something that we hold on to. We bless others. We allow money to flow to us and through us. We're always in the attitude of gratitude by our giving. What does that really mean in the spiritual context? Okay, so the laws of the universe that govern us are about giving and receiving, exhale and inhale, sowing, reaping, seed time, harvest, action, reaction. We could throw karma in there, but karma is a little more complicated than that. What it really means, the $60,000 question is this: if I'm not realizing money and blessings in my life, and blessings can be much more than just financial things. It can be your health, it can be happiness, it can be quality friendships and relationships, it can be laughter, many blessings in our lives. But if I'm not realizing these things, am I blocking it up somehow? Am I living in a spirit of lack? Am I thinking that I have to hold on to everything because if I let it go, I might not get it back? Am I unwilling to cast my bread upon the water? Let's go a little higher. What it really means is that I have not yet become a vibrational match with wealth. I can't think from a mentality of scarcity and become a vibrational match with blessing and more than enough and abundance. And so that is kind of the lesson for today. Look at the very last sentence at the bottom. It says this: as we raise our vibration from lack to more than enough, we become a conduit. We might say a vibrational match, a channel for blessings to flow to and then through. All right, amen. That's learning to share. Let's read together our closing prayer for our devotion this evening. Giving Spirit, awaken me to love, live, and give from a place of more than enough. I am open and available for good things to flow to me, for my prosperity, and through me for the prosperity of others. Amen. And so I was looking forward to connecting with you again Friday morning on our Fully Awake devotional. Welcome once again to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. Go ahead and look in your event description, download the notes for tonight. It's going to be worth it, I promise you. And before we go any further, let's take a big, deep breath together. As we pause for just this moment, we slow down from a busy day. We allow our minds to become still and open. We let go of the minutia of things to do. We release now the projections of what tomorrow might hold, and we open our minds to hear, to see, to receive, to recover, to uncover, to unearth again the truth that is already within us. As we empty out our minds of preconditions, we celebrate the beginner's mind. We agree with the idea that faith comes by hearing. We walk into the kingdom of God curiously and inquisitively, as little children, refusing the mastery and embracing the mystery. We walk now into the Zen Bardo space. We follow now the instruction of the Apostle Paul, who says, purpose in your heart to know nothing. We declare to the universe we don't know, and we allow the portal to be open now for the knowing to flow to us and through us. Amen. This is our prayer of surrender, and just the kind of the way that we set up the conditions, not necessarily to be spiritually fed, but to feed ourselves with what's already in us. And so our job tonight is not to teach anything. It's to remove any conditions, any obstacles that keep us from seeing and remembering what we already know. And what is that? That we are made in the image and likeness of God, and good all-knowing is already within us. All right, prayer of surrender. Let's do it together. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. All right. Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. Thank you once again, Eckhart Tolle, for writing such a helpful, enlightening book. We have uncovered some ubiquitous themes. Learning to recognize our own dysfunction. Learning to see our own insanity, which of course sets up the foundation. It cracks the door open for functionality and for a sane lifestyle of being able to recognize what is not working. Our greatest achievement is not science. It is not technology. It is not medicine. It is not athletics. It is not entertainment. These are all wonderful things that we enjoy. Our greatest achievement is to know thyself, as Socrates said. Know thyself, know how we think, why we are thinking the way we're thinking. And if that level of thinking is not working, to be able to step back from it and say, my thoughts are becoming my life, and it's not a life that I want to live. I'm willing to take a look again at my level of consciousness. Another theme that we have bumped into is this idea of identifications. We are not our physical forms. We are not male, female. We are not white, black. All that is part of our physicality, old, young. Geography can be part of a physical attachment to something. We are also not our thought forms, opinions, doctrines, beliefs, catechisms, indoctrinations, systematic or systematized theological dispositions. We are none of those things. We are not our thoughts. We are the spirits capable of having thoughts, considering thoughts, and then clearing out of thoughts and letting the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of truth and wisdom have complete agency in our minds and in our hearts. All right, the last theme that we seem to be really chewing on almost weekly is that our present consciousness is not necessarily synonymous with our eternal capacity. What does that really mean? That means wherever we are now is not our potentiality. Whether we think we've arrived or not, we haven't. We thought we arrived 20 years ago. Some of us thought we arrived 40 years ago. And we have still been learning line upon line, precept upon precept. Some of us were homophobic. Some of us were religiphobic. Some of us xenophobic. Some of us misogynistic. Some of us saw the Bible through the filter of our own biases and prejudices. And so we have learned that that's not who we were. It was just our current consciousness at that moment. But our eternal capacity is bigger than anything we're thinking right now. And we have to both allow ourselves that right to continue to grow and unfold into our greatest and highest good, and also to give that grace to others. That whenever we encounter someone of a lower vibration, we have to remember that's where they are right now. That is not their capacity. They also have the capacity to grow and to awaken and unfold as well. All right, we'll jump in. Last week, we asked 4 questions, and we're going to go through those real quickly. We asked, what do our reactions to another person's pain body reveal about us? When we react to someone else's pain, or the way that they overreact at times to something that's painful to them, what does our reaction say about us? Are you, am I having conversations with ourselves while encountering another person's pain body? Are you talking to yourself and saying, this isn't personal. This isn't about me. This is about them. And are you taking a big, deep breath in that moment? Number 3, is inaction as important as action? Eckhart Tolle gave us an interesting story last week that a woman really just came to his house late at night, freaking out, throwing her bills and papers all over the place, thinking that somebody was basically out to get her. And he got very quiet and just sat in stillness. And in his inactivity, she kind of came to herself. Had he jumped into the fury and the chaos and the storm with her, she probably would not have been able to see herself the way that she did. And so sometimes our inactivity, our non-responsiveness, our silence, our stillness allows people a peaceful environment to see what they need to see, and that is themselves. Number 4, What is your formless essence? Eckhart Tolle brought to us a phrase last week that we talked about on Sunday, a formless essence, without gender, without thought, without opinion, bias, without physicality. We talked about formless essence last week. All right, tonight's questions, and mull over them because we're going to talk about them throughout the teaching and then open up the discussion at the end. Tonight's questions: are all triggers related to the past? A trigger, something that acts as a catalyst to an emotional response, reminds you of some sort of painful memory, causes us to either react physically, emotionally, verbally, all of the above. Are all triggers related to the past? Interesting. Number 2, what are your triggers? Let's personalize it tonight. You don't, if your triggers are something that are private, you certainly have the right to keep that private. If you'd like to share them, you certainly can, but don't feel pressured to do that. But just ask yourself tonight, what are my triggers? What are the things that trigger me emotionally? Something of some sort of painful memory, a word, things of that nature. All right. Number 3, is knowing your trigger or triggers empowering? Is having an awareness of what arouses painful hurt in you, is it empowering to know what those triggers are? And so before we jump in tonight, I did want to go and refer to one part of the email. And so you might be able to identify some of these triggers tonight as we talk about them in the teaching. Triggers of money or financial insecurity, financial instability can be a trigger.
It's in our comments as well.
In the comments as well, Brandy said. The trigger of abandonment, feeling abandoned. Physical abuse, and I just put father there because that's the example that Tolle gave to us, but physical abuse could be from any family member, any neighbor, anyone you come in contact with, relationship. Lack of affection, I put from mother, but it could be from anyone that you hold dear to yourself. The lack of affection could be a trigger. Alcohol can trigger some things in us. Even scenes in movies can be triggers. And so we're going to go through some of these triggers tonight. And I think it's going to be a night of healing for all of us. All right, week 47. Week 47. We've almost been here a year now. We're going to talk about triggers tonight. Some pain bodies react only to one particular kind of trigger or situation, which is usually one that resonates with a certain kind of emotional pain suffered in the past. Interesting there, okay? For example, if a child grows up with parents for whom financial issues are the source of frequent drama and conflict, he or she may absorb the parent's fear around money, develop a pain body that is triggered whenever financial issues are involved. The child, as an adult, here we go, gets upset or even angry over insignificant amounts of money. And so there is kind of the leadway for question 1. Are all triggers related to the past, or personalize it to our past, to my past? Are all of your triggers related to something in your past? Behind the upset or anger lie issues of survival and intense fear. Remember, in Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh's epic work, we either create our lives out of love or out of fear. Okay, so most of the time when something is triggered, it's not coming from a place of love or gratitude, it's coming from pain and fear. I have seen, Eckhart Tolle says, spiritual, that is to say relatively conscious, people start to shout, blame, and make accusations the moment they pick up the phone to talk to their stockbroker or realtor. Just as there is a health warning on every package of cigarettes, perhaps there should be a similar warning on every bank statement. Money can activate the pain body and cause complete unconsciousness. So a little bit of teaching about financial insecurities. Many of us might have them. Maybe we grew up in a household that seemed to be financially unstable. Or maybe there was something in your younger adult life that has triggered that, and so, or that can be a trigger for you. All right, next trigger, someone who in childhood was neglected or abandoned by one or both parents will likely develop a pain body that becomes triggered in any situation that resonates even remotely with their primordial pain of abandonment. Is that something that you deal with in your life? A friend arriving a few minutes late to pick them up at the airport, or a spouse coming home late can trigger a major pain body attack. If their partner or spouse leaves them or dies, the emotional pain they experience goes far beyond the pain that is natural in such a situation. It may be intense anguish, long-lasting, incapacitating depression, or obsessive anger. So we've talked about financial insecurities as an emotional pain body, the feeling of abandonment or the lack of feeling secure maybe in relationships. Okay, a woman who in childhood was physically abused by her father may find that her pain body becomes easily activated in any close relationship with a man. Alternatively, the emotion that makes up her pain body may draw her to a man whose pain body is similar to that of her father. Ain't that some stuff? Wow. And so sometimes our pain attracts people who continue to cause the pain. Interesting. So pain, when somebody says get over it or it's time for healing, don't always take it personally. It usually is for our best and highest good. It doesn't mean that anyone is trying to erase your past, but maybe on a higher level, they're trying to help us heal from the past so that we don't continue to repeat the pains of the past by attracting people that continue to bring us the same pain body. All right, her pain body may feel a magnetic pull to someone who it senses will give it more of the same pain. That pain is sometimes misinterpreted as falling in love. Wow, very interesting. So money, we've talked about financial instability, abandonment, and now physical abuse. A man who felt unwanted as a child and was given no love and a minimum of care and attention by his mother develops a heavy ambivalent pain body that consists of unfulfilled intense longing for his mother's love and attention, at the same time, intense hatred toward her for withholding what he so desperately needed. When he becomes an adult, almost every woman will trigger his pain body's neediness, a form of emotional pain. And this manifests, listen to this, as an addictive compulsion to conquer and seduce. Wow, look at the connection there. Sometimes men who become womenizers, who become infidels, they are just really acting out from possibly a lack of affection from their mother. They want to conquer and seduce other women, but really it's all related to their inner child not having enough affection and love from their own mother. Wow, that's an interesting connection. Almost every woman he meets in order to get the female love and attention that he lacks. As soon as his advances are rejected, the pain body's anger toward his mother will come up and sabotage the relationship. My goodness. When you recognize your own pain body as it arises, you will also quickly learn what the most common triggers are that activate it, whether it be situations or certain things that other people do or say. I highlighted this in my notes. When those triggers occur, you will immediately see them for what they are and enter a heightened state of alertness. There comes one of the next questions. Is being aware of your triggers, is that empowering? Does that give us a sense, a greater sense of power over them if we become aware of them? All right. Within a second or two, you will also notice the emotional reaction that is the arising pain body, but in that state of alert presence. I love that. As the divine observer that we talk about on Sundays, you won't identify with it, which means the pain body cannot take you over and become the voice in your head. If you are with your partner at the time, you may tell him or her, what you just said or did triggered my pain body. Have an agreement with them that whenever either of you says or does something that triggers the other, you will immediately mention it. In this way, the pain body can no longer renew itself through drama in the relationship. That's interesting. And instead of pulling you into unconsciousness, it will help you become fully present. And so look at that beautiful communication there. In a trusting, loving relationship, that you can tell somebody, hey, that kind of triggered my pain body. That triggered something very difficult in me. And that helps you become aware that It is a trigger. It also helps your spouse, your partner, friend, loved one, whatever, become aware that maybe that type of statement or action is maybe something that is unhealthy for the other person. But in some ways, there may be some level of health in it that we are learning to become aware that we don't have to react to those things all the time. Okay. Last paragraph, let's jump into it. It says, every time you are present when the pain body arises, some of its negative emotional energy will burn up, as it were, and become transmuted into presence. Look at the power of that. And so it doesn't mean, hear me, it doesn't mean that all of our pain is going to go away. It doesn't mean that there's not a scar that's still present, that is different from the rest of your skin. That scar feels different. It's maybe a little more sensitive to other places than other places, but it is not an opened wound anymore. That it has healed. The scar is there to remind us that it did happen. But in that alert presence, in that awareness, that alertness can be transmuted into divine observation. And through that observation, we begin to take some of the sting and some of the pain, some of the power out of the pain body. The rest of the pain body will quickly withdraw and wait for a better opportunity to arise again. That is to say, when you are less conscious. A better opportunity for the pain body to arise may come whenever you lose presence, whenever you're not knowing thyself, okay? Perhaps after you have had a few drinks, there it is, alcohol, or while you're watching a violent film, or maybe an intoxicant makes you lose presence or awareness of yourself, or maybe some sort of scene in a movie, a lyric from a radio, a song on the radio, something that triggers something in kind of an unguarded moment without you being present. The tiniest negative emotion, such as being irritated or anxious, can also serve as a doorway through which the pain body can return. But remember, the pain body needs your unconsciousness to survive. It cannot tolerate the light of presence. Wow, wow, wow. That's a lot of healing balm for us tonight. And hopefully, if you saw yourself in some of this teaching, then now you have an awareness that is a trigger, and that trigger can ignite your pain body, and that's okay when it does happen. But in the awareness of it, we take some of its power away. And so we talked about the triggers of money, abandonment, physical abuse, lack of affection, alcohol or intoxicants, movies or scenes in something that might trigger something. I want to read one more time before we jump into our discussion, our questions for tonight. Number 1, are all triggers related to the past? Number 2, what are your triggers? What am I triggered by? And number 3, here's the empowerment, is knowing your triggers empowering? And if it is, how so? How is that empowering? All right, let's talk tonight.
All right, we have someone on YouTube tonight, and I like the name here, but I'm not exactly sure who it is. It says Eye of Ra Productions.
Eye of Ra, some Egyptian, both mythology and archaeology and spiritual expression, the Eye of Ra. I believe that the Eye of Ra is also present on American money. I think it is. I could be wrong, but the Eye of Ra. Thanks for being here. It sounds like you're a spiritually minded person.
So they said, as I continue on this path of self-discovery and transformation, my commitment to cultivating awareness and embracing my triggers has opened the doors to a more authentic and liberated existence. Each trigger I navigate mindfully gets me closer to embodying the essence of Tolle's teachings, a life anchored in presence, free from the shackles of past conditioning and fueled by conscious choice.
Whew.
And then later on went to say spiritual rejection as a child, self-rejection, and rejection from my mother when I discovered being queer was, quote, wrong.
Man, somebody needs to be teaching this series instead of me. Eye of Ra. Wow, what a brilliant mind. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. You made my baby leap up inside of me. Yeah, iron sharpens iron, as the deep things in you have called to the deep things in me. Thanks for being here tonight. I loved your awareness of self. Yeah, and that has produced in you the ability to be more authentic in your relationships. And so pain that is ignored becomes passive aggressive. And then it bubbles up in moments that sometimes we least expect it. I have talked with my children extensively as they're kind of in their dating lives about dating, being vigilant to try not to date people who are emotionally unavailable. If they had some trauma in their past or some sense of abandonment or something, all of us have something of that nature in our lives. But if they choose not to talk about it, if they choose to just keep things on the surface and always have something going that keeps us away from having meaningful discussions, which sometimes can be uncomfortable, sometimes there can be tears involved, but without those difficult, intimate, sometimes painful conversations, we really don't feel close to people. And so I find myself navigating in my friendships to people who are willing to share some of their vulnerability with me. And those who are not willing to be vulnerable, that their friendship, it only goes to a certain place. And so in order to love, you have to risk love. In order to connect, you have to risk vulnerability. And it seems like that methodological approach in your life, Eye of Ra, has certainly brought you to a sense of awakening and, as you say, conscious presence. Wow, wow, wow. If you're ever in Atlanta, you better come to Spirit and Truth and give me a big hug, and because we are kindred spirits. Thank you for being here tonight.
Richard shared or answered all three questions. To number 1, are all triggers related to the past? He said yes, they are usually past driven. However, cannot survive in the light of presence or the truth.
Yeah, look at that, Richard. I love it. You're A++, as Bishop Larry Scott would say. 100 is not enough. 100++. Yeah, that's right, Richard. I would agree with that if it's a trigger, it's not something being triggered in the present. It is triggering something from the past that's manifesting itself in the present. But as you say, in the light of awareness, it strangely grows dim. It kind of shrinks away. Tolle says, or maybe it's Dr. Wayne Dyer who reminds us that the ego is never really completely defeated, but it is completely held in abeyance when we become conscious, when we're aware and alert. Beautiful, Richard. Thanks.
So for number 2, what are your triggers? Richard shared, my past pain body triggers manifest itself in me with increased blood pressure rate, lack of concentration, increased heart rate, or loss of focus.
Yeah, when that trigger, isn't that the mind-body connection, Richard? So when something is triggered from your past and it begins to express emotionally through you, yeah, blood pressure, heart rate, lack of focus. That I think all of us hopefully can relate with some of that. I love it that you're aware of that. And in the awareness, you become aware of your body, of what's happening in your body, the metaphysical experience that you're happening from the mind into the body. And in that presence, you can then talk to yourself. Calm down. Take a deep breath. This is a trigger. Okay, don't take this out of proportion. Settle yourself down. I did that when my daughter was little. She had asthma, and she was on a little albuterol inhaler for several years, and she was also a little athlete. And so when she would get tired, she would get exhausted, she would need her albuterol. Or sometimes she also had a lot of ear, nose, and throat issues that caused her to cough a lot. And she would kind of cough herself into almost an asthmatic fit. And Brandon and I would have to say, hey, take a big deep breath. Okay, we know we're not going to cough ourselves into an emergency room thing right here. We just kind of learned how to talk to her. Come on, take a big deep breath, settle down. Guess what? We still do it in her adult life. She does it with us. When people who love you, when they know that you're at that place, they know how to say, hey, I know it's okay, but let's just take a deep breath. This is not as big as we're making it right now. It's even amazing, Richard, that when you can do that with yourself. Thanks.
All right, and for number 3, is knowing your triggers empowering? Richard shared, yes, they allow me to better deal with, reflect, and take a needed pause. Stop, take a deep breath, and think before I act or react.
Did I just steal your thunder, Richard? I just talked for 5 minutes about your answer to number 3. Great minds think alike, I guess. Thanks, Richard. Beautiful.
All right, Doug shared I think maybe Doug, you can let me know if I'm correct. Doug's on Facebook. He said illumination on this is instant. I'm thinking he meant to say isn't. Illumination on this isn't instant. Subconscious patterns tend to take time.
Yeah.
But so worth it.
Yeah. And so the saying from, if you're familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a wonderful 12-step group that I think honestly the modern church would do well to pattern their expression after AA. I've been to some AA meetings with friends and realized that there's a lot of people in there who are not really even chemically addicted. They're just learning how to deal with their emotions and learning how to create a positive outlook on life. But one of the phrases in AA is it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And so whether it's transitioning our minds from the religious, literal mind to a spiritual awakening to the bigness of God that's not about a specific holy book or name of God or religious tradition, but a bigger and better vision and version of the awesomeness of the intelligent mind of the universe. It doesn't happen all at once. Maybe some of our religious conditioning is generational. I'm a 5th generation Christian minister, from Free Will Baptist to Methodist to 3 generations of Pentecostal holiness and charismatic expression. And so I didn't make a transition overnight. There were steps along the way, and then there were quantum moments of kind of like a quantum leap of awakenings. But other things kind of happened a little bit at a time. And so that's okay. It's like you said, it's not going to be instantaneous. But the more we become aware, the more we begin to unfold into our higher selves. Thanks, Doug.
Reverend David Michael wrote in, love the progression.
Love the progression, yeah. And think about our progression, Reverend David Michael, from the chapel, the JPH chapel. I remember David Michael Searcy and JPH chapel, yeah. To the tent, to the K Center, to the cathedral, all along the way, whether it was, interracial, women in ministry, reaching out, opening the doors. And you and I have had intimate conversations about this, David Michael, that our first attempt to reach out to the LGBTQ plus community was not what it is now. It was in some type of, helping people get delivered from, their gayness or coming back to their heterosexual selves, some sort of heteronormative projection that we were in. I wasn't a part of it, but I was a child. I remember some of that stuff. It didn't all happen at once. We are the expression now because of what began as an opening awareness. When we had communion, if you remember, David Michael, with the Pope, my uncle and also my uncle John Mears, had a communion with Pope John Paul II. They called it Vatican II. He invited Pentecostal ministers to come in and take communion with him. What a big deal that was. Well, but in essence, if you'll hear me, David Michael, it was still Christians. Catholics, even though Protestants and Catholics have some different conditionings and doctrines, they still believe in Jesus. They still believe in the crucifixion and the resurrection and salvation and things of that nature. That was a part of our progression, but it wasn't all of it. So now we are a completely gay-affirming church. We are completely an interfaith church. What will be the next progression? We don't know. We'll continue to progress, but that's where the beginner's mind comes in. Thanks, David Michael.
Okay, so I like this perspective. Thanks, Doug, for clarifying. He wrote back in and said, I've had aha moments when illumination was instant. So I think that's the way he meant to say it. So sorry for that. Good, yeah. He said, I was set for that day, but then walking out, excuse me, in my authentic knee-jerk reaction to life took time in some instances.
Man, that's even more troublesome, isn't it, Doug? as we say on Sunday, we trouble the scriptures. Yeah, so think about some of the instantaneous revelations that we can study both throughout the Bible, in our own lives, in humanity. Think about when the Declaration or when the Constitution of the United States was written. We declare that all men are created equal. Wow, what an amazing revelation. That ain't what we practiced. We didn't practice it with people of color, with indigenous peoples in America. We did not practice it with women in America. Yeah, there was this revelation, this amazing thought, but even though there was an instantaneous quantum seeing into the depths of truth, it didn't really manifest, and it's still not fully manifested, right? And so that's a beautiful explanation. Thanks, Doug.
All right. For number 1, Miss Bobby shared, are all triggers related to the past? I'm sorry, that was the question. Apologies. Not necessarily, but when it comes to money, some circumstances come up and it's like deja vu. Ask, why is that here again? I thought that door was closed.
Yeah, deja vu. Deja vu is kind of weird, isn't it, Bobby? The one thing it does for me, I've had some strong deja vus where I've thought I could even predict the next thing that was going to happen. My son and I have some interesting conversations about deja vu, and he's like, Dad, does that mean that it's a past life regression? And so Micah, I'm going to give you a very educated, I don't know. Who knows? It could be that we are more eternal than we give ourselves credit for, that our birth into this physical world may not be when we came alive. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Yeah, how about that, Jeremiah? So, powerful, Bobby. But deja vus also serve to help us see, why is this here, and this is the difficult question, again? Why is this here again? And so sometimes things come back around again for us to learn a lesson a third and fourth and fifth time. But in conscious presence and conscious awareness, hopefully we learn a little bit quicker.
All right, let's see. Miss Jen commented, for number 2, what are your triggers? I am triggered by racist behavior. When someone tries to treat me as subservient, I am immediately reminded of the ancestors. I become quiet and avoid further interaction.
Yeah, and so that trigger is something that, we thought, we had hoped as a human family that we would be past some of that. But some of the healing doesn't completely take place because a portion of our society doesn't own up to what did happen. And that's a difficult place to be. I was talking with a friend of mine who worked in Germany for a while, and I was kind of like, Germany, girl, you better not go to Germany, you get caught up in some nonsense. She's like, it's actually the opposite of that. They have a very painful, difficult past, but they own it. And they don't allow the Nazi flag to be flown. You can actually get arrested in Germany for flying a Nazi flag, because Germany as a nation has said, we don't want to be that. And of course that doesn't mean all Germans agree to it, but those at least in power have taken some legislative steps. Finally, we see some things in America. We see some statues coming down of generals and captains and people who were fighting to continue in slavery. It's difficult, but we see some movement. We see some things happening. We see, for a while I was so embarrassed of the Georgia state flag. I think there's some discussion on changing it, but it looked like the Confederate flag to me. You hear people saying that this symbol is not about hate, it's about heritage. And I go, that's a painful trigger for a lot of people. And so sometimes the triggers collectively, Jen, don't heal as quickly as we'd like for them to, because the collective consciousness is still unconscious. Or I should say, because of the collective unconsciousness. But in that lower vibration, there still is the light of hope. There still are some places who are becoming a model of inclusivity and of living beyond the labels of race and gender and sexual orientation. But the triggers are still there, and it's okay. At least we recognize them when they happen.
Brittany shared, most of my triggers are related to my past as a teen and not having a father. Mm-hmm. And she said, I tend to vomit or not eat when I feel abandoned by a partner.
Wow. Powerful. So again, Brittany, think about the emotional, how your mind plays into your emotions and how your emotions affect your body. Nauseous. I don't desire to eat. That's very powerful. And so being aware of that trigger helps you in a lot of ways, Brittany. First of all, you become a little bit more present. Okay, I can talk myself down a little bit. This isn't, everybody I meet is not my dad, trying to abandon me or neglect in some ways. But also, also asking ourselves the questions, am I having trouble creating a long-lasting relationship? If it is not lasting, Am I carrying something of my pain into this? And as totally taught tonight, am I attracting my dad to me? That was difficult, wasn't it, Brittany? Looking at that, what a difficult statement. Not that that is or is not your experience, and I'm so not projecting that onto you, but totally brings up the idea to chew on. If we are continually being abandoned by someone, are we attracting a person of the same type? Is that vibration still in us that we're attracting that same pain? And so we step back from it, we recognize it. Hopefully we begin to look for someone of a different type. If you're dating the same type of person all the time that it's not working out, we might want to look for a different person. Yeah, and so when that person arrives, here's the other thing, Brittany. We say this at Spirit of Truth. It can be very difficult. One of my high school basketball coaches attends our church. He's usually attending virtually most of, but he heard me teach the message: we don't get what we want, we get who we are. And we should nuance that by saying we get who we are presently. We are not our present or our current consciousness. We are our eternal capacity. I get it. But whatever we're attracting is kind of what the vibration is that we're giving off. So if we're attracting people that aren't stable, that aren't disciplined, that cannot continue to commit to a loving relationship, is that just who they are, or is that who we are? And it's certainly not projecting that onto you, Brittany, but saying, am I still so much in the hurt of the past that I'm not able to fully embrace intimacy in this new relationship? And so that can be really difficult. I can say to you, Brittany, that in my own life, I'll be vulnerable. What my family and what I have been through personally in church work has been very difficult emotionally for me because of both the scandals of our church and the message that I preach. So many of my close and intimate relationships just left. People that would say to me, D.E., I will never leave you. We're friends for life. I'm here. I'm for this. I'm in this. So just watch them walk away and go, no, I don't want to accept the gay community. I don't want to be interfaith, or I'm going to this other church, or, God spoke to me that he's released me from here. And I'm like, that ain't what God said to you 20 years ago when you said you'd never leave. I have to be vigilant over that I don't close myself off emotionally to a new member, like Cheryl Handy, who's one of our beautiful new members, or to Lard, who's one of our new transgender members, that I don't close myself off emotionally and go, well, you're just going to leave anyway too. No, I've learned to say, instead of becoming bitter about everybody who's left my life, to say, well, I bless it coming and I bless it going. And somehow, Brittany, in that shift mentally, spiritually, I have begun to create more stable relationships because I don't put so much pressure on them to stay. I just say, I want you here. Let's walk together. But when God releases you, I release you. And I know that something else as good or better is coming in its place. I bless it coming, bless it going. Somehow in that freedom, people aren't leaving as much. And maybe there's not the pressure of me trying to get them to stay. I don't know what the trick to that is. But just the awareness of self and our own hurts, what we project into things. And I am so grateful for the friendships and close loving relationships that I do have. And I try not to focus on the ones that did not work out. Thank you, Brittany. Thanks for sharing your life with us.
And over on YouTube, Miss Jen said, sending Brittany a virtual hug. So that's nice. All right. So for Miss Irma, I like this perspective. She said, I tried to come up with something, but the truth is I got nothing. I am sure most of my triggers are related to the past where I had no control. Mm-hmm. Now I know. And then she said, I don't know the way of knowing.
Look at you, Irma. Look at you. Look at Guru. Look at Rishi Irma talking and teaching from a place of awareness. Yeah, that's a beautiful space to be. That I had some triggers, but I'm not exactly sure what they are now because I don't live in that space anymore. Wow, what an amazing thing. Let me say this to everybody who's sharing tonight. If you ever want to be anonymous, if you want to share something that you need to talk about or need something, just kind of let us know in advance, and we'll try to figure out a way not reveal that. And so I know this is sacred space, and what happens here stays here. I get that. But sometimes things are very delicate, and sometimes people don't want to share something that may be extremely painful because they may not want their name said. If that is the case, send us you can send private messages through chat. You can send it directly to Brandy instead of to the entire chat. There's a way to do that. Or email us and say, hey, when I share something, I don't want my name to be said. That's totally fine. We respect that. I know that can be just kind of popped up into my mind as we were talking, but we want everybody to feel comfortable to share. And sometimes there are things that happen that are so painful that we don't want to say it. We don't want it connected to us. But if we don't talk about it, we just continue to sweep it under the rug. It needs to be talked about so we can find a path toward healing. Thank you, Irma. Beautiful.
All right, Miss Cheryl commented, for the past 15 years, I have cultivated the practice of centering, mindful, reflective, contemplative meditation that allows me to embrace equanimity and stay present in the moment. My trigger is related to others' labeling and judgment of others. Knowing my triggers are empowering and allows me to hold space for others as they evolve in consciousness.
Wow, centering, awareness, and then you kind of answered all of them, didn't you, Cheryl? Awareness of being triggered by the judgment of others. I think I struggle. I wouldn't necessarily call it the judgment of others. I would say I don't like to be blamed for things that I did not do. That's a real trigger for me, and that's difficult because I'm still working through that one. But yeah, there's a lot of history with that. Awareness, centering, being present, conscious observation, divine presence. Yeah, that's beautiful, Cheryl. I love it because guess what? Everybody we meet is not going to be on the same vibration that you're on. They're just not. They're not going to be where you are. I was so proud. I won't say the name here, but if you were at Church Sunday, you know who I'm talking about. I won't say the name, but one of our precious longtime members had to do a funeral for his family. And his family was quite a bit more religious than we are. And I thought he navigated the eulogy beautifully and was still true to himself at the same time. And there is a way. There is a way to be centered, to know that everybody's not on the level of vibration that you're on, but not to take it personally or to allow them to lower us to their vibration. Thanks, Cheryl.
All right, Taria asked, what about when you have to walk on eggshells because a person is always in their pain body and everything triggers them?
Whew. All right, Taria. Please take this with a grain of salt. So I try not to give advice because I don't want somebody to say, Pastor D.E. told me to do such and such and it ruined my life. This is just if this were my life, Taria, and I was always on eggshells with somebody, I'd find somewhere else to be. I know that's difficult to hear that because we get obligated to people. I talked to someone the other day and they were talking about they had to, it was one of their brothers, refused to respect and to love and affirm who they were. And finally he said, I stopped responding to my brother's text. I don't have to have him in my life if he's going to continue to cause pain. And so whoever this person is, Taria, unless it's just absolutely impossible, don't make the choice to be around them. If someone is always on eggshells and you're having to walk on eggshells to never, don't be around them. If someone is that temperamental, you can create your own life. There are other people out there to be around. There are other people you can spend your time with. I will not spend my life walking on eggshells around people who I'm constantly offending. And so you can kind of tell that in the pulpit when I do certain things that allow the religious people to be uncomfortable. I'm saying to them, I'm not walking on your religious eggshells. That's okay. It's okay to do that, Taria.
Laverne shared, I was going to save this one for the end, but I got a little out of order. Laverne shared, I'm not ignoring pain body triggers. Lord only knows I've had enough of them. But I concentrate now on mostly positive ones. The Wonder Woman chasing scene with Sia, Unstoppable, is great. Gives me energy.
I love it. Yeah, that's ignoring them just makes it worse. denial is not just a river in Egypt. My kids get mad when I say that. Yeah, denial really just kind of pushes it down, doesn't it, Laverne? Yeah, and there's no way to explain how denial shows up in these explosive moments of things that you're like, what just happened? Why did I just say that? Why did I react that way? Yeah, I've been in denial about it. And so that Wonder Woman moment, Sia swinging from the I think that's who you're talking about, swinging from the chandelier, or
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Sorry. Yeah, this is who I am. Hear me roar, and being my authentic self attracts other authentic people to me. My vibe attracts my tribe. I refuse to shrink to fit into places that I've outgrown, or with people that I've outgrown. That's okay. It's okay to say that. That's great, Laverne. Thanks.
All right, a couple more here. It's so great lately. So many comments. You guys are keeping me busy over here. Remember last week D.E. said he wanted me to go on camera? There's no way that tonight, y'all kept me way too busy.
You gonna get it.
I need an extra hand over here. Let's see. Pastor Fred shared, number 1, my triggers are related to my past experiences. And he said, how religious I was 20 years ago. And then number 2, about what are your triggers? He commented, conversations with my family about religion. And then number 3, which was, is knowing your triggers empowering? Fred said, yes, I know I am free now.
That's great, Fred. Look at you. You are the physician that has healed yourself, Fred. Yeah, you see the trigger. You're aware of it. And some of those conversations can't always be avoided, but some of them can. And as Jesus would remind us, I think we had a devotion Sunday, Fred, don't cast your pearl before the swine. We don't want to call family members and people that we love swine, of course. But what Jesus was saying was don't give your spiritual gems to people who aren't worthy of them, honestly. Not that they're not worthy, they're not operating in that vibration. And so, yeah, Joseph told his dream too many times and they got him for it. Thanks, Fred.
All right, 2 more. Let's go circle back to Richard.
Okay.
He shared, negative triggers are similar to putting out negative energy, only to receive more negative triggers or energy.
Yeah. If we are constantly being triggered, and that is our pattern in life, we're attracting people who get triggered. That becomes our vibration. Thanks, Richard.
All right, last but not least, Dr. Sharunda. I will share transparently, Dr. Sharunda B. I can pretty much relate to this. She said, I am a recovering perfectionist. For the most part, I know when to back off and breathe or sing or dance. I love that, by the way. But there are times when I neglect rest or sleep when I know I have an overwhelming schedule.
Yep, self-care. Sometimes self-care is sleep. It is laughter. It is choosing not to take on every project that is given to you, because, Dr. Sharunda, when you are an A-type personality, when you're an overachiever, a perfectionist by nature, people are going to give you more things to do because you get them done. My dad would always say to me, son, if you want something to get done, give it to a busy person. Well, isn't that just kind of piling more work on a busy person that's already out of balance? But there's some truth to it. If someone operates in a slow manner, they're not operating with excellence or expediency, you don't want to give them a project because they're going to keep saying, well, I didn't get around to it yet, child. Yeah. Don't give things to a person who's got things going. But at the same time, there has to be an awareness. You can't always have something going. You know, even Jesus, Dr. Sharunda, pushed away from the disciples, went to Bethany, spent time with Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. He had some self-care. Judas chided him for that. When Mary broke the alabaster flask and poured out the fragrance on him, Judas said, we should have sold this to give to the poor. And Jesus said, this was for me. This was for my self-care. The poor you have with you always. Interesting that Jesus said that, isn't it? Yeah. And so, yeah, sometimes, Dr. Sharunda, you have to say, I am going to save the world, but I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to save Sharunda today. Thank you for sharing that. That's good advice for all of us. That's it. Wow, look at us, 7:32. Look at this discussion. I actually ended teaching tonight right at 7, like 7:02. You've been talking for 30 minutes. That's a lot of love. I'm going to respect your time tonight. I'm just going to give a shout out to everybody that's on.
Lots of people tonight.
All these beautiful names. Thank you for being here. Please don't take offense that we didn't call your name tonight. And let's close with our affirmation tonight. Come on, let's read together. Tonight, I am willing to recognize dysfunction. If suffering is the normal state of humanity, I do not wish to be normal. If I've created God in my image, I will surrender to the truth that I am made in God's image. I am neither an external physical form, neither am I any internal thought form. I am a spiritual being capable of experiencing physical form and the observing presence open to considering a diversity of thoughts. My present thoughts do not reflect my eternal capacity. My potential for awakening to self and spiritual transformation are endless. Amen. So it is. Looking forward to seeing everybody Friday morning at 7 a.m. What a great discussion tonight. Thanks for sharing your lives with us. We love you guys. Go in peace.